get right into this. Season 4 rendition by the lovely and talented Roger Pleasant, Uprise Studios. The only credit he'll ever get. I think your jeans are better than mine, Gary. Personal confession.
They're Target.
They have the best jeans.
They do.
Let's see if I can fade this out properly and that the viewer can hear it this time. Manual fade out. Welcome to Big Words I Know by Heart, a program of rants, raves, faves, pet peeves, personal vendettas, celebrity interviews, and anything else we can fill the half hour with. My guest today is a retired language arts professor from the University of Buffalo. He's been writing since around the age of 13, and in that time he's penned over 200 short stories, poems, op-eds, and radio essays. He's the author of the novels Nickel City Blues. You want to go for that product placement, Gary?
Sure.
Out now from Black Opal Books. Blackbird Rising, The Wheel of Desire, and the children's book Dots, as the resident playwright of Ujima Theater. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
I used to be with Ujima. I'm now with Subversive.
Okay.
I was also board chair at Ujima, and when I retired, I was on like 5 different non-for-profit boards. I got off all the boards. Let younger people do that.
Okay. Okay, he's also written Picture Perfect, Sleepwalkers, and The Trial of Trayvon Marton, among others. In 2006, his courtroom drama Matter of Intent received an Edgar Allan Poe Award, as well as the Emanuel Fried Outstanding New Play Award. If this intro goes on any longer, we won't have any time for the show, so I'd like to welcome Gary Earl Ross.
Thank
Gary,
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Joining us in the co-host hot seat is the author of the, do you want to do your product placement? Of the new hit novel, Echoes, Lori Lume?
Lume.
Lume. Everybody has to have a difficult pronunciation. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you.
Good to have you both here, as well as Adam, our secret studio audience, who's not on camera. Gary, we've been like ships in the night. We've passed by over the years. It's nice to finally have you on.
Thank you. It's nice to be on.
You're a busy man. You're an accomplished man. We talked a little bit before the show, and your bibliography is gigantic. You never stop.
Maybe I'm afraid that will be the end. And I'm not willing to go to the end just yet.
That when you run out of stories to tell, that'll be over?
Possibly, yes.
Now, you've said before that you're in a constant state of research for your work. Is there an absolute point with each project where you feel as if you're all set, or do you continue filing, tabbing, and collating for future endeavors?
I continue filing, tabbing, and collating, but when I'm working on a particular piece, say the play The Guns of Christmas, which was about the truces that happened in World War I on Christmas Eve, where German and French and British soldiers all put down their guns for Christmas. When I'm doing something like that, I did dedicated, focused, hardcore research for a number of days. Now, the information I came up with for that will probably not be useful for other pieces. So in that case, the research would be finite. But if I'm doing, say, a courtroom drama, Matter of Intent, which won Mr. Writers of America's Edgar Award. I still can't believe that happened here 11 years later. But Matter of Intent required me to investigate legal procedure, and I spent a lot of time reading books, visiting courtrooms, watching courtroom dramas, even doing video simulations so I could learn courtroom procedure. Many, many years ago, I briefly dated a lawyer who said, I hate courtroom dramas because they never get the law right, and I was determined to get the law right. And when people saw A Matter of Intent, they said, where'd you go to law school? And I thought, I guess I got the law right. But what happened is that I learned courtroom procedure, spending a year researching and writing Matter of Intent, and then my other 2 plays that are courtroom dramas, I knew courtroom procedure, so it was easier to write those because I had the basis already in my head.
So you have very good recall skills.
I I used to, but I'm older now, and my dearly beloved father passed away from Alzheimer's, so I do kind of live in terror that I have a gene lurking back there that's going to switch on and turn me into I don't even want to think about it. But
Well, I had a question for later, but do you think you inherited his typing skills? He was able to type 100 words per minute in the Navy?
I did not inherit his typing skills. I absolutely did not. Some people know of my dad's typing. I was on a Miss Buffalo cruise a few years ago, and an older gentleman said, "You Earl Ross?" I said, "I'm Gary Earl Ross. Earl Ross was my father." He said, "You look just like him." He said, "I grew up with your daddy." I said, "Oh, how nice, you know." He said, "No, we went into the Navy together. We were all so proud of him." I said, "Well, yeah, I knew he was one of the first black men to work in an office because he graduated from Hutchinson High School with a business diploma and he could type 100 words a minute." And he said, "No, son, your father was the first." I thought, really? Wow. I felt like stunned, surprised, and then honored. But his having typed like that meant that he did a lot of typing. When I was 10 years old and I decided I wanted to be a writer, he gave me his old typewriter. And so at 10, I didn't learn to do this. I started by doing this, and I still do this, but I can do 40 words a minute now. I could never get to his speed, but that's about at the rate I'm thinking when I'm constructing scenes and sentences.
What was the brand of typewriter, just because I have to know?
Smith Corona.
Smith Corona, very nice.
And I used to fix the keys with pen springs, because when the keys would break, I would take a pen, take the little spring of the old ballpoint pens out, and work it in, and it wouldn't be quite as tight as a typewriter key, but I could still use the typewriter.
I had an electric brother in high school, if you remember those.
I do.
Now that you're retired from university, what does your writing routine look like? Do you wear a funny hat or a fluffy bathrobe at the typewriter? And do you own any cats named after hard-boiled crime detectives from the 30s?
Oh, you just... My cat was named after Jack Bauer of 24. And
Nice.
I just had to put Jack down like 2.5 weeks ago. At the age of 17 and a half. So you hit a sore point there.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Jack was, he was a good cat. But my writing routine is most mornings, well, 3 mornings a week I get up and go to the gym, come home, shave, shower, and write. Tuesday and Thursday I get up and check email and then write. Except when I'm directing a play, which I'm doing now. At which point I'm focusing on other things. I'm seeking props or planning rehearsal schedules or other things. But most of the time when I write, it's late morning, sometimes very early morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but late morning, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I write till noon or 1, and then I'm kind of spent for the day.
Do you kill a pot of coffee?
Usually I have 1 or 2 cups, not a whole pot. I have a Keurig, so I do it 1 at a time.
Very nice. Lori, how many cats do you have?
3.
3? Do they sleep with you guys?
One of them sleeps with me regularly. The other 2 kind of take their time.
Do you want one more? You
No.
can have mine.
No.
He's an asshole. Now, Mr. Earl Ross, how did you go from Ray Bradbury to Stan Lee in one move, and what else have you picked up rereading them as you got older?
I've always been an avid reader. Through most of my life, I've read somewhere between 70 and 100 books a year. And I thought I'd be reading much more when I retired. As it turns out, I'm probably reading 50 to 70 now. I've declined a little. But I read so many different writers that the writers I go back to regularly are the ones who help shape my own writing. Yes, the first book I took out of a public library was Ray Bradbury's R's for Rocket, and the stories were exquisite. I was 10 years old. It made me want to be a writer. Then I grew up with comic books, of course, and for a time, some of my scholarly work, when I was done seeking tenure and all that, I got into popular culture, and I did a lot of work on graphic novels and such. But I grew up with Marvel Comics. I'm about to break my own heart when I say I had Fantastic Four #1, Spider-Man #1, X-Men #1. Avengers #1, all of those things that are long lost. Had I kept those, had I had any idea how valuable they would be, and had I known that when I grew up and went away to school that they'd get trashed, I might have retired a lot earlier. So
Who threw them out?
the family, says, oh, he's not here, we don't need these things, so they're gone.
I think I've heard that story before.
I know, we all have that story. Because we didn't know. We didn't know how valuable they would turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I got into comics, and I loved Stan Lee's writing because they felt like real people. And I learned, I think, in part from him, from Bradbury, that stories were about people.
Lori, who got you started? And don't say Stephen King.
I think more poets.
Poets?
Yeah.
Any particular ones?
A lot of Bukowski.
Nice.
A lot of Sylvia Plath.
Very nice. Gary, how would you describe your entire bibliography in one syllable? Not what you were expecting. Well done. And is protagonist Gideon Rhymes a less sexy version of yourself or your son who's a police officer in Florida?
I'd say he's kind of a combination. He looks more like me, but he has my son's characteristics. I mean, he's an Iraq War vet. He's an ex-police officer. My son is a current police officer. He's married with 3 children. Gideon Rhymes is not. Mm-hmm. The reason I did the name Gideon Rhymes is I had thought about using the name Rhymes many years ago, and then I read The Bone Collector by Jeffrey Deaver. And the main character, the quadriplegic detective, is Lincoln Rhyme. And I thought, boy, I can't use that name now. And then at the Edgar Awards, I met Jeffrey Deaver, and I said, I was thinking of naming somebody Rhymes, and said, go ahead. But okay. And so I tried to avoid it, and I went around playing with other names. And then I decided to do an internet search of all the names I came up with for my detective and what I hoped would be the series I would write through my retirement. The only name that did not show up somewhere in some directory, in a phone book, on a Facebook page, the only name that did not show up was Gideon Rhymes. I thought, that's it. That's got to be the name. Because if anybody looks for that name, the only thing they can come to is my book.
Now, what plans do you have for him next?
Well, I'm working on the second book, Nickel City Crossfire, and I'm about 35,000 words in, but the way I see my retirement is write a novel, write a play, and it's turned into write a novel, write 2 plays. So I did stop to write a play, but I felt compelled by the current political situation to write another play. So I will probably get back to that book around December. I'm thinking my publishers are thinking you should be giving us something soon, and maybe I'll submit it by May.
Is there something going on in politics right now?
Well, the third book in the Gideon Rhymes series is going to be Nickel City Storm Warning, and it's going to involve a white supremacist convention that's happening in Buffalo.
Oh my goodness.
But the play I feel the need to write, and I'd planned this before the election, before I thought, I've laid out like 6 books I want to do. And after the election, I moved that book from the number 4 spot to the number 3 spot. And since all the recent, Charlottesville business and so forth, I thought, wow, there's more ground to explore with that. So the play I'm writing is tentatively titled Breath at the Edge of the Storm. And it won't be a companion piece to that novel, but it will deal with the white supremacist couple who kidnaps the black doctor who worked on their son after he killed somebody and was shot by police at a rally, and he died. And so they kidnap the doctor, and they're going to give him the same 3 days their son had before they kill him. So I feel I must write this as a play, and then I'm going to jump back into Nickel City Crossfire, which deals with the opioid epidemic, and then I'll start working on Nickel City Storm Warning.
So what you're telling me then is while you're working on what you're working on and directing a play, you're thinking 5 moves ahead?
Pretty much.
That's standard.
Yeah, the play I'm directing is Honky by Greg Colares from Brooklyn. It's not even my play, but it's a comedy about race, language, and sneakers. It opens November 2nd.
November 2nd. Are tickets available now?
You can check the Subversive Theater website. I don't think tickets themselves, you can make reservations for any time during the run.
Mm-hmm. Do you have points on the back end?
No.
No. I also read that you take, well, at least you used to take in 4 movies a week. Are most of them rom-coms?
Well, I watch a lot of movies. My living room is a library. I have about 1,000 books on shelves, and I have about 1,000 films in compact cases, and they're cataloged so I can find things when I want to watch them. I am a believer in the power of story, and I've come to realize that in later years. It's not just movies and books, but short stories. The stories, I believe, are what separate us from other beings, from other animals. And the power of the story is such that it defines our humanity. It gives us a mirror with which we can look at ourselves. And so I'm a story junkie. So if I read a book or 2 a week, and I may watch a couple movies in the course of a week, but there are a few TV programs I watch as well, ongoing stories. And I have in my home media library collections of radio plays and some TV shows and other things. I'm just a story junkie.
I can relate to that. And tell me a little bit about the thought process and beginning stages of Blackbird Rising. That also looked like another book that you had to really dig into the research with.
I did. It began as a dream, and the dream happened in 1994. I woke up at 4 in the morning, having dreamed about Delaware Avenue at the time of the Pan American Exposition. The street was unfinished, kind of packed dirt as opposed to pavement. I looked one way in my dream. I was on a porch. It wasn't the Wilcox Mansion. It was a red brick house. I was on a porch looking at Delaware Avenue in this dream. Saw a horse and buggy coming one way, an early tiller-steered motor vehicle coming the other, horseless carriage. And then I looked up overhead, and I saw a black pilot in a biplane. And I woke up at 4 in the morning and started writing notes, 4 pages of notes. And the result of that was Blackbird Rising, which is an historical novel that deals with the grandsons of a runaway slave building a working aeroplane
In secret.
2 years before the 2 years before the Wright brothers, for the Pan American Exposition, with the idea that they would do a surprise flyover when President McKinley is there. And the idea being they would elevate the race by selling the design, et cetera, et cetera. And McKinley gave a grant of $50,000 to Samuel Langley of the Smithsonian to develop an aeroplane, they were aeroplanes, as a weapon for the Spanish-American War. But in 1898, but Langley's designs didn't work. So he would have been interested in an aeroplane. So that dream, that possessed me. It took me a number of years to write the book, to research the book, to write the book, and then to sell the book. So.
And how did? Actually, Lori, what can you tell me about your book, Echoes? Where it's available? In a nutshell.
It's available on Amazon.com as a physical book and as a Kindle.
The Kindle.
Kindle.
The kids love the Kindle.
Those e-readers. I like paper books.
And it's a horror novel.
It's, you could call it that. It's more of a psychological thriller.
Is it taut psychological thriller?
What do you mean?
Is it tense?
Yes, it points. Yeah.
It points. Okay, I like it. Gary, you can find all Gary's books and more, too, as well as at GaryEarlRoss.net. How did writing The Trial of Trayvon Marton as a short story and then a stage play help you to work through your feelings on the controversy?
Well, the short story I wrote the short story after the acquittal of George Zimmerman, and it was my way of discharging my anger, because from everything I read of the case, it seemed that Zimmerman stalked this boy. I actually got nasty emails and threats with the play, but I was determined to, just put it out there that had the situation been different, had Trayvon Marton gone on trial for shooting George Zimmerman in the same kind of struggle, he probably wouldn't have been given the benefit of the doubt.
True.
So, and again, Kurt Schneiderman is the artistic director of Subversive Theater, and we were discussing, year before last, we were discussing what we should do with the upcoming season. And he said, I'd like to do something about Black Lives Matter. And I said, well, here, read this short story, and if you like it, I'll expand it into a full-length play. And he got back to me and said, I like it. Can you do that? And I said, sure, not a problem. So that's how the play came about. I made changes from the short story because then I thought I had an opportunity to do something else. I made both lawyers women. The judge was a woman, and the wonderful Anna K. France, a dear friend and colleague. We asked if she would play the judge, and she said, I don't think I can do performances. But then we thought, well, what about a voiceover? So she recorded all her lines, and it worked beautifully in the play. When the lawyers approached the bench, they were approaching the audience and looking up and getting the judgment, the judge. But
were you expecting a little bit of a negative backlash, or were you amazed
I figured there would be some. Somebody wrote something about my distorting the case, and he would punch me in the face over it. Somebody else saw the pictures, the publicity pictures, and complained that the actors looked nothing like the people they were portraying.
What?
Thinking, okay, I don't know. I mean, that's part of the dramatic process. You take a license because you're creating something. It's not a documentary. It's a speculation. What if things had gone the other way? And this past weekend, Tammy, my better half, and she really is a much better person than I am, Tammy and I saw Professor Marston and the Wonder Women. I was looking forward to that because I had read Jill Lepore's Secret History Wonder Woman. Thought it was a terrific book. Luke Evans and Rebecca Hall and Bella Heathcote played the leads, and all attractive Hollywood-type actors. Mm-hmm. If you look at real pictures of William Moulton Marston and his wife Elizabeth Holloway and his mistress Olive Byrne, they look nothing like the people in the movie. So
it's artistic license.
That's just the way it goes. But yeah, it's somebody demands a certain verisimilitude to a piece of fiction. It's fiction. Mm-hmm. We know that Trayvon Marton died and George Zimmerman went free, but this is fiction. So
you specifically labeled it as speculative fiction, too, correct?
Technically, all fiction is speculative, but yes, mm-hmm. and I got that from Harlan Ellison, who prefers the term speculative fiction to science fiction. But
is he still alive?
Yes, Harlan's still alive.
Just thriving on bitterness and revenge.
Yes.
He is a nasty little hobbit of a man, but very talented.
Actually, I met him many years ago, and I didn't find him charming, but I found him full of energy and informative, mm-hmm. and it was at Buff State. And during the question and answer session, someone rose his hand and said, I'm a writer, but I never figure out what to write about. Where do you get your ideas? And Ellison said, if you don't have ideas, you're not a writer. A writer has nothing but ideas. And I was young, and that confirmed for me that I was a writer because my brain will not stop. Sometimes it doesn't let me sleep because it's spinning stories.
You have to quiet the voices.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that Ellison is taller than a Keebler elf? No?
What is Harlan? About 5'5", 5'6"?
Do you have any theories as to why there are no novels, stage plays, or even puppet shows throughout recorded history about the unfair treatment of white people? And
there will be. Breath at the Edge of the Storm is going to take a look at that. The kidnappers will have discussions about how white people are discriminated against, and it's a perceptual thing. Yeah. Well, actually, there are stage plays and films about that. Thomas F. Wilson's novel, The Klansman, was turned into the film Birth of a Nation. And that is, I don't know if it's still a white supremacist Bible. It was kind of a Klan Bible many years ago. But I don't know how many Klansmen are still reading it. But I've read it, so because I read everything, or try.
And you stated in an interview that you'd like to take a walk and eat a candy bar after the occasional rejection letter. What's your candy bar of choice? And do you think of yourself as a nougat enthusiast?
Candy
Very
bar,
proud of that one.
Yeah. Three Musketeers or Milky Way. Those are my two favorites, I suppose. But I'm fond of Reese's Pieces.
I like the peanut butter cups.
Mm-hmm. And I
buy the entire package.
I love peanut butter.
Love it too. Lori, what's your poison?
Chocolate.
Any chocolate?
Chocolate.
Toblerone?
Yeah, sure. Chocolate.
And, I did that question early on. You also wrote and starred in your stage play, The Mark of Cain. Do acting and writing come from the same headspace? Or do you switch gears?
To an extent, yes, because part of acting, I mean, I took drama courses and other things in acting class many years ago, and I never saw myself pursuing acting as an avocation. I do like doing it from time to time. With The Mark of Cain, I was actually going to direct, and the actor who was going to play Dr. Cain got ill and had to withdraw after we did rehearsals. And subsequently, long after, about 6 or 8 months after the play was done, he passed away. But I stepped in because I thought it would be easier to take that part and find another director than to find another actor, because it's a massive part. And Mike Lodick stepped in to direct, and one day I said, damn, there's a lot of lines. There's 185 lines here. He said, take it up with the playwright. Okay. But
did you rewrite on the fly during that? Did you make any changes to the play while you were in it?
I probably made a couple changes, not for myself, but if lines weren't working. And one of the things I like about theater is that it's collaborative, so that if something is not going well, like when we were doing Matter of Intent, and Lorna Hill was playing the lead, Attorney Temple Scott, at one point we were in rehearsal, and she said, this line doesn't sound right to me. It doesn't seem that she has the right to ask this. And I thought, well, the answer drives the next plot point, so we have to figure out a way to make it work. And so I rewrote the line. And now, this many years later, I can't remember which line and which circumstance, but I rewrote the line, and then it worked. So before a play is published, it has to be performed and vetted, and actors, directors, producers, everybody will have some input into what's working and what isn't working. Mm-hmm. And you'll know. When you hear certain things, you'll know. The first summation in The Mark of Cain, the part that Larry Roswell did wonderfully when he played Attorney Charles Durham, was 25% longer, but it just went on too long, so I had to cut it. And even then it was long, and I said, Larry, that's okay. The summation in the real trial was 7 hours long. You're getting a break here. So.
And we're all, speaking of cutting, I may have to cut all of us. We're almost out of time, my friend. Are you a benevolent director, or are you a fascist director?
I'm a collaborative director. The play I'm directing now, Honky by Greg Colares, the actors, the stage manager, the assistant stage manager, the costume designer, they've all been around and thrown ideas out. What if we do it this way or that way? And I listen to all that and then go from there. So I love collaboration, and I am not a martinet.
Any last plugs you want to work in?
No, I'm just happily writing and enjoying my retirement and my grandchildren.
Whatever you're doing, it's working, my friend.
Thank you.
Lori, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Adam?
Thank you, Lori.
You did not supply a laugh track. Tough crowd, everybody. I'll see you in a month.